Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of A Mic on the Podium with me, Michael Seal. Before we start, I want to thank my latest Patreon subscribers, Chris and Aidan, for their support and all my other Patreon subscribers for their continued support. This podcast would struggle to continue without them, and my Patreon page is quickly becoming a great place to hang out and talk about the world of conducting. There'll be more about my Patreon page later on in this episode. Today, I conduct a conversation with the first Mexican conductor to appear on the podcast. Over a long and distinguished career, he's conducted all across the planet, but mainly divided his time between the Flint Symphony Orchestra in Michigan, where he's been music director for 33 years, and Buenos Aires, where he's been the principal conductor of the Buenos Aires Philharmonic for 15 years, and general artistic and production director of the Teatro Colón for 5 years. It's a great pleasure to welcome Enrique Arturo Diemcke. Enrique, it's lovely to see you and to speak with you. It was 2019 when we met backstage at the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires. It was lovely to finally meet you, and it's lovely to see you again today. How are you?
Fine, thank you. It's lovely to see you too, because now with this technology we can see each other, and we are like 9,000 kilometers away from each other.
Yes.
Or miles, I'm not too sure. It's far away. And just to see your face is wonderful, and hear your voice is even better. So I'm doing fine. Thank you for the invitation, and thanks for putting me to your audiences and to pick my brain to see what is in there, if there is any.
I'm sure there's lots in there. I know you're actually currently in Buenos Aires, and I was just saying before I pressed record how much I love that city. I've been going there, I don't know, I've been there maybe 12 times now, and I've built up such a lot of friends. And it was finally lovely last time, finally, when I went and conducted your orchestra, the Buenos Aires Philharmonic, and I did Shostakovich 8th Symphony, to see you and meet you. In this podcast, the first thing I do is go right back to the beginning. And you come from a musical family. Your father was a cellist, your mother a pianist, and you started quite young, playing the violin at age 6. Was music ever always going to be something you were going to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I began to speak, to mumble words, and the first words were do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si.
Wow.
Before I could ever say probably even papa y mama, I was saying do, re, mi, fa, sol.
Yeah.
And I was listening and hearing music all day long, but not only because we have radio or we have stereo. Actually, we have neither of both. It's because there were students coming, and my father had his colleagues that would come in to rehearse, so we hear music all day long. Live music.
So yeah.
We learned to love, and I say we because I have 2 brothers, an elder one and a younger one, and I have only 5 sisters.
So... only 5. Yeah.
And we are all musicians. We all turned out to be musicians, and my father was our teacher.
Yeah.
And but when we were kids, the first 4 of us, I'm the 4th one, so we started studying with my father. He was a terrific teacher. He was a cellist, but he was able to teach us violin too.
Yeah.
And my elder sister, obviously, because being bigger, she was playing the cello, and the next one of my sisters was playing the viola, and then my brother was first violin, and I was second violin. So we started to play the classical music right away, and sometimes, simple things, not so complicated, but simple things from Boccherini or from Vivaldi, then we can manage with our techniques. And little by little, when we started developing more and more, we started with Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven's quartets, and we were able to really grab the spirit of an ensemble and how to produce the sounds are necessary for making the music happen.
Yeah.
And music is especially in the string quartet, is like the perfect format.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
The base for many things, because it has a 4-voice part, which is based for the harmony and for the counterpoint and all of that. You learn so much just by playing string quartets. It really is magical. and then you have to really be able to dialogue with your colleagues and what part is more important than the other.
Yes.
And of course, being second violin, as you know, second sounds like a second, and you want to say I'm second to none.
Yes.
And but I was very young. I was 7 when I was playing already in the quartet, and I asked my father why was my name Enrique Arturo. And he said Enrique because of your grandfather, your mother's father, and Arturo because of Toscanini.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh, you mean the conductor? He said, yes.
Yeah.
I said, oh, that's what I want to be, a conductor. I said, but what am I doing then playing second violin?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you went on to have, we'll come to your very famous violin teacher, or the teacher you studied with in a minute. But I'm going to ask, because I didn't really mention at the beginning that you're from Mexico. And I wonder whether you were always being good little children and playing string quartets and Beethoven and Mozart, or whether you did ever go out and play, you know, some of the more indigenous local music, or even go into, you know, mariachi or anything like that. Was it always classical and straight, or did you ever slip and go off and play in the other stuff?
Yes, actually, we were playing classical only.
Yeah.
And tell you a little story. And we used to practice. And we were living in this city in the north of Mexico called Monterrey, and it's very hot in the most of the times in the summers, and it gets cold in the winters.
Okay.
It's very extreme because it's kind of a desert-like.
Yeah.
So my father made us practice in front of a window that would face the street for 2 reasons, or 3 actually. It was because we have natural light.
Yeah.
And second, and we will have some kind of a breeze or air conditioning, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because we have the current. And the other one is because everyone that was strolling on the street, sometimes they would stop to listen what we were doing. And my father wanted us for us to get used to audiences.
Yeah.
And then any movement won't distract us from concentration.
Yeah.
So we used to practice there every day and prepare our concerts and recitals. And one day, a man, when we had just a little bit of a break, he said, can I ask a question? And I said, yes, sure. I said, you live here, so you're going to stay here? You are not going out at all? I said, no, we're not going to say, because I'll be back. I'm going to go home, and I want to bring something for you. And so he went back later on, like an hour or 2, I don't remember how long. We never thought he was going to come back. And he brought an LP.
Yeah.
And so he handed it and said, I want to give you this as a present. It's my favorite recording and my favorite pieces, but I think you deserve it more than me. You can have a better usage. And we accepted it humbly.
Yeah.
And after he leaves, we said to Dad, I said, but how are we going to play this?
Yeah.
We don't have a stereo.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, well, I guess it's time for us to purchase a stereo. So we went to this store, and by the way, it was called Sears, you know,
Right.
Sears Roebuck. And my father had an account in Sears Roebuck, and he bought this long stereo, you know, the one that had the speakers, and on top of the speakers you can put their records or the LPs. So he's making the payment, and we say, Dad, but only one recording, only one LP. And then he said, well, then go and choose some more. I said, at least 3 or 4. And so we go there and we look at the music, and there are only 4 LPs of classical music. The rest, everything.
Yeah.
So we picked up, and it was the New World Symphony and the Swan Lake, Beethoven, 5th, and then the Trout by Schubert.
Yes. Yeah.
And then one of my sisters says, you know, I found another quartet, because we were looking for quartets, and they said, okay, just bring it, and let's go home with all the recordings and everything. So we went home, and we put the first one was Swan Lake. Oh, fantastic. And then the Grand Canyon was one of the other ones.
Yeah.
Grand Canyon, and then we listened to the New World Symphony and the Trout, and then suddenly I said, okay, let's play the other one is a quartet, and say, oh, we couldn't understand the picture, but it was like that's not like the picture we have here of the Budapest Quartet. I mean, there's all those people are old and very serious, and this one had like long hair or something really funny. And I said, oh, but it's from England, Liverpool, so it's the Liverpool Quartet. Ah, okay. So they're like young guys like us. So we start playing it, and we were a little surprised because we'd never heard them before. So and we didn't know the songs, and normally I sing and it was yesterday, but it wasn't yesterday because it was not composed yet. But it was similar. But the guitars they were playing in those days were natural guitars.
Yes.
I mean, not electric. So those didn't have a well-tempered donation. So for us was a big surprise. We thought at the beginning that our machine was broken already.
Well, let's go from the world's most famous band, the Beatles, and go to a very famous violinist who you studied with, Heinrich Schering. How long did you study with him for? I mean, I know you went and studied at the Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Was it there that you met him?
Actually, I met him in Mexico.
Okay, yeah.
Before I went to the States, we were playing in an orchestra. We moved from Monterrey to Guanajuato, Guanajuato City, and they had a wonderful orchestra that my father was part of the founders. He went to Monterrey to be the founder of the orchestra in Monterrey. So my father was, like as I said before, a wonderful teacher. So he would look at the students and he would pick up in a band and say, okay, that person could play the cello, that one could play the violin, that one could play the viola, because he already knows the transportation. I don't need to teach them all of that thing. I don't need to teach solfeggio. I just go directly to the technique of the instruments. And the same thing he did in both cities. And so we moved to Guanajuato and we lived there for a while. And then we went to a newly founded orchestra in the state of Mexico, in Toluca, in which was a larger orchestra. It was supposed to be a big romantic, to play the romantic repertoire. So we decided to go there. When my father said, let's go there because we were going to be able to play the big romantic composers. Because here in the orchestra, maximum we can play some of the Tchaikovsky's or Brahms symphonies. Beethoven 9 was occasionally, because not only because of the chorus, but also because of the size of the extra horn and the contrabassoon and the piccolo, blah, blah, blah. So we moved to that city and we started playing, of course, Shostakovich, Mahler, Bruckner, Stravinsky big works, and getting to the big repertoire. And he was in the orchestra, an assistant of Heinrich Schering. And when he heard us playing, he came to talk to my father and say, you know, you have done a wonderful job with your kids. He said, they have wonderful technique. I mean, and if you want and you trust me, I would like to bring them up to another level.
Yes.
And my father said, but by all means. I said, I've been looking to have a teacher. And one of the reasons we went to Guanajuato also was because was a wonderful teacher there, and here, of course. And so we began to go into the technique of this guy, and he told us, you know, I'm the assistant of Heinrich Schering. And he's going to be coming in the summer. It's going to spend 2 months here. And I like to see if he would listen to you in master classes. I said, for sure. Honestly, what a gift. So we prepared ourselves, and then we went in the summers and played for about 6 or 7 weeks master classes, and we had the opportunity to play in front of other violinists and always with an accompanist, and he would teach us tremendously things, technical but musical things, and they were really very important. That for our age, I mean, I was only 17, so it was important, and my brother was 18, so we together wanted to develop more the technique of playing the violin and making music out of just having a better technique.
Yeah.
And that's what we did it for 3 years, 3 summers. And but the end of that summer, I talked to him, to my maestro sharing, and I said that I wanted to go to study abroad.
Yeah.
And he said, well, let me see what I have someone that can help me. Say, but honestly, I want to study conducting. What do you mean conducting? You're a terrific violinist. You have a future. Say, no, maestro, that leave it to my brother.
Yeah.
That's for my brother. He really loves violin.
Yeah.
I play the violin and I love it. And I think I learned a lot playing second violin in the quartet and playing in orchestras first violin. And in that point, I was studying French horn too. So I played the French horn in the orchestra. I said, but I really want to be a conductor. And he said, oh, really? What a waste.
Well, at least he was honest. I mean, that's the point,
he
isn't
was
it?
honest.
Yeah, at least he was honest.
So then I enrolled for a summer in the Permanent School up in Maine in the United States. And I was accepted. So I went there for 1 summer. And during my stay in there, I was conducting, and Madame Montu and Maestro Charles Brooke were very satisfied with my talent. And they say, you are not going back to Mexico. So you're going to stay here, and you're going to go on to continue developing your knowledge about music in a more kind of higher level situations. I mean, you have to really study and make your head organized, that not only your spirit will go out, but it will go with organization.
Yeah.
More technical in a way, but it's more Cartesian. And I said, well, I don't know, how can I do that? So I said, no, I already wrote to several schools, and they're willing to hear you an audition for you to go there. So you go back to Mexico, get all your paperwork. You have to bring blah, 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 blah. And you come back in the summer, and then you stay in the United States. And we'll see which university or college you will go to. So after trying, we find the Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Will give me a scholarship.
Yeah.
But also the opportunity to study conducting. My major was violin. My minor was French horn and conducting, because in the United States, the undergraduate doesn't exist for conductors.
No, that's right.
You have to have first an undergraduate, then you go to grad school to study conducting. But the teachers were a little more than satisfied with my talent. They actually said that they were kind of impressed, and I could solve things and they haven't seen in years. And I had a picture pitch, and I could identify chords and all of that stuff with just one hearing. And so they say, okay, we accept you in the program of conducting too. You want to be with elder people, because most of them are like 4 or 5 years older than you are, because they are doing the doctor's degrees or masters or whatever.
Masters, yeah.
So I say, the contrary. That's what I want. I want higher competition. I want to be challenged by people that already are in the career, are already in the mastering the tools. So I was there for my undergraduate, and then Madame Montu, in the summers I would go to the Montu school, and Madame Montu decided that I should go and study in Europe. So she told me one day that she had passed the hat through all the friends and there that they like me and love me, and put some money to pay for my ticket and for some money to spend, pocket money. And so I went to Paris to continue my studies with Charles Brooke.
Well, that ties in with an earlier episode 58, Hugh Wolfe, the American conductor, he was studying in Paris, and he also studied with Charles Brooke. And he mentions that Charles Brooke could be strict. He could also be very kind. He could be, he told stories about him. And how did you find Charles Brooke as a mentor, as a maestro, but also maybe as a person? How did you find him?
Well, I have to say that we were totally afraid of him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was afraid of sharing.
Yes.
But I was even more afraid with Charles Brooke. Maestro Brooke could be cruel.
Okay.
I mean, because he would try to make you realize that you had to have a strong personality, not an ego.
Yeah.
Not an ego. He would break your ego. He would say your ego is interfering to the music.
Right.
Nothing can be more important than music.
Yeah.
And immediately he would say that you were like expressing like you were commanding the music. He would come and say, that's monkey business.
Yeah.
So, no, concentrate, make music. So get the sounds out of the musicians. Don't follow the music just making like choreography, like you are a dancer.
Yeah.
That's a different tool. He said, this is, you have to command. They have to feel your energy, not you, their energy. So but he would be tough in front of the students, all the students and the whole orchestra, when you were not concentrating, when we were not concentrating on the music. He would challenge you with questions like, what does that mean? What is that the meaning of that passage? Who's the composer? Where was he born? What was his idea? And you say, well, in the dictionary, say, no. I don't want you to tell me what somebody else says.
Yes.
I want you to tell me, what do you grab from the score?
Yeah.
What is what the score is telling you?
Yeah.
So let's say pick up La Première Dauphin, the Debussy. So what is telling you when it begins that flute solo? Is describing you something, the composer's feelings, his mind, his thoughts, the way of seeing life, the way of seeing nature or something. So that's what is important. Not what you read in a book and it tells you that the afternoon of the phone was whatever.
Yeah.
So people might have made a mistake. Maybe you can make a mistake too.
Yeah.
So, but at least you got it from the music, not from somebody else. So after you learn all of that, then you can read and then you can compare notes. Don't criticize, compare notes. He said, but before you get influenced by someone, I want you to learn how to do it yourself. So then you compare notes and say, oh my God, I was so wrong. Oh my God, I got it, I nailed it. So at one point, he gave me an assignment, or he gave us assignments, but he would give a long list of 50 works. And he noticed that out of those 50 works, we had to choose 2 of each category. Was classical, romantic, modern, light classics, and contemporary. And he said, you can choose 2 out of any of those categories. So he noticed that no one picked up a selection of a contemporary composer, a living composer. So he said, I'm a little disappointed with all of you guys that none of you chose to do this composer's piece. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes and you decide who's going to do that piece. If not, I would choose the volunteer.
Choose the volunteer.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So we are all looking at each other, Hugh Wolfe and many other ones, Neil Gettleman, and so we are all looking at each other. Who's gonna do it? So finally, it came the moment that Master was gonna call it, and I raised my hand, and he said, "Good. I'm so glad that you chose to be the chosen volunteer." He said, because, and then he showed me that he already has been given the assignment to me.
Yeah.
And I was impressed that he would know that.
Yeah.
So I went home and studied and came back the following day, thinking that he was not going to do the piece. And suddenly he calls such and such piece.
Yeah.
It's my piece. And it's the first piece. And I ran to grab my score, and I put it there, and I start conducting, and everyone was laughing. I mean, the sounds when they were coming out there was not exactly what we were expecting, you know?
Yeah.
It was worse than hearing the guitars in those days. It was not tempered intonation. No, it was nothing that we were expecting. And I didn't know where to grab the thing, so I started laughing too.
Yeah.
So, and I saw the faces of all the students, conducting students, and the orchestra, and they were like, come on, we are wasting our time, you know, and just get through it. And I saw Maestro Brooke's face, and he was
livid. Yeah.
He was livid. And so I finished, and he said, you come here.
Yeah.
He had a lisp. He would talk with a lisp.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So he came to me and say, and also he was Hungarian. So he would say Hungarian with the R like that. And the VW would be V.
Yes. Yeah.
And he would come to me and would say, well, what do you think? I said, well, Maestro, I tried to do that. No. I'm truly disappointed of you. I thought you were a good conductor, but you are not at all.
Oh dear.
Do you think that conducting is only conducting beautiful music?
No, he's right.
Only conducting beautiful tunes and beautiful rhythms? Do you think that's conducting? Well, you are totally mistaken. I don't want to see you. Get out of my sight.
Wow.
Go, get out of my sight. I don't want to see you. So I was with my ego totally destroyed.
Yes, of course.
If I had any, because I already had before.
Yeah.
So now it was like, what's what I did wrong? Then, so I went home, and my colleagues were there, and I say, hey man, good job. I mean, you did great. I mean, what a piece of shit. Sorry, but thank you for sacrificing to save us.
Yes.
And I said, well, you don't seem to be happy. No, I'm not happy. I said, why? Because I had to go. I had to go and study. Study what? What is peace? So what do you mean study? But it's nothing to study. Nothing. I'm sorry. I have to. So I left.
Yes.
I couldn't sleep studying the whole night. So following morning, I thought he was never gonna call me again and talk to me. I was concertmaster, so I would get up and tune the orchestra. And when I was tuning the orchestra, I feel someone is pulling my leg.
Yes.
And I turn around, and I just say, "You start." I say, "Oh, really? Right now?
Yeah.
Quick! Quick!" So I dropped my violin and picked up the score and grab my baton, and I announced what we were going to be doing, and everybody began to laugh, and I said, "Excuse me, let me work on the piece."
Yeah.
Okay, so at this portion, I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to that. Now let's play it together. Okay, now you, blah blah blah. I organized the piece and then let's play a little bit together, and that's blah blah blah. So I finished, and I saw Maestro Brooke sitting in the back. It was like
success. Yeah, he'd made the penny drop for you.
Exactly.
It made you realize that that sometimes you have to be an advocate for music that you maybe don't personally like, but or you haven't yet fully understood, but sometimes you have to stand there and put it together. You have to take it apart, put it together. I mean, I watched Simon Rattle do it week after week when I was playing in the orchestra in Birmingham, the best at it ever. You always knew who you were playing with, how to fit together, and then the piece would grow on you. But it's no different for him or you or I than it is for the orchestra musicians. You know,
Exactly.
sometimes you look at a score and you can't make head nor tail of it, but through the rehearsing process and taking it seriously, then something happens. I think it's such an important thing. By God, he sounds like a real character. He sounds like, as you said, you were frightened of him, and I'm not surprised why. He sounds like a real force of nature. But I seem to remember also that Hugh Wolf saying that part of it he thought was also because his own career was not a massive success to some degree. Am I right in remembering that?
Yes, he was successful, but he had a bad temper.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
he had a
yeah.
bad temper, and when he was trying to make the career, it was the beginning of the unions and the beginning of all those things, and would not resist the screaming and the yelling and the
and even, well, I mean, nowadays you cannot survive as a conductor with a temper like that. But even then, there was a line had to be drawn somewhere, you know, where even the maestros were more tyrannical than they are now. But even then, somebody's going to draw a line somewhere. Well, it worked because, you know, I'm just looking at some facts and figures here. You know, you spent either 4 or 6 years at the Opera de Bellas Artes in Mexico City as music director, and then immediately from then you spend 17 years at the Orchestra Sinfónica Nacional de Mexico back home, whilst also having your music directorship in 1988. So, I mean, around the same time starting music director of the Flint Symphony Orchestra, which you're still there in your 33rd season. We're going to come to Buenos Aires in a minute, but I'm going to lump it into the next question, which is, you know, there is this perceived attitude, and, you know, it's borderline. I'm trying to think what it could be between, you know, Latin American temperament and North American temperament with orchestras. How many, or do you see differences between the orchestras you used to conduct in Mexico and now do conduct in Buenos Aires, and also with your orchestra in Flint? But obviously you've guested all over the place. I've seen, you know, in Europe, in North America, Canada, wherever. Do you perceive any big differences between the way the orchestras work in one half of the equator to the other half of the equator?
Yes. Well, it's like everything in the Anglo-Saxon versus the Latin.
The
Latin world. And Anglo-Saxons are more, they look serious, and they look like everything has to be done before you even start.
Yes.
So it's about that. And afterwards, the satisfaction is we did a good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you did a good job.
Yeah.
And you think that's the end of it. And with the Latins, we are waiting a little bit, and then we come to the place and we start discovering how it would end. And then at the end of the first rehearsal, we celebrate, and it's great, and the concert, and blah, blah, blah. And then let's go and celebrate, and everybody gets excited. But then probably the following day, they don't even remember. And then you get I always compare this to a dinner that I had my first time that I was invited to a dinner in the United States. They told me, you know, we want for you to come to our house for dinner. We start with some drinks 5:45. Okay, so I said, okay. So I came 5:45 to have dinner, and for drinks first, and then at 6:00 was dinner served, and then after dessert, probably a coffee or something we have and talk about. And at 8:00 we say, so nice to have you tonight with us. It was a real pleasure to come to our house. 8:00.
Yeah.
So I thought, my God, did I say something wrong? I was not enthusiastic enough for the food. I was not complimenting to the chef, to the lady or the man, whoever cooked that night. What? And I was feeling so embarrassed. I said, at 8:00, I've been sent home from a I'm a dinner party in Mexico. You go there at 8 o'clock, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
The host is not there yet.
Nobody started at 8 o'clock. No,
Not even
exactly. Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
You start at 10 and 11, and if at midnight you say, I gotta go, they feel offended, then you want to leave.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's the opposite. So then I say, oh God, I said something wrong. So following day, I go back to the rehearsal and have check my mail, and I found this nice card, and I say, it was so lovely to have you in our house to share dinner, and the stories you told us were so wonderful, and we appreciate the comments you make about the food, and we did it with our hearts and blah blah blah. And I said, oh, that's so nice. And then I understood that that's the way things are.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That's the way we all behave, is the way the traditions are, the temperament,
Yes.
the Anglo-Saxon world and versus the Latin world. So I find it with the orchestra similar. It's the delivery in the classical orchestras, the Latin orchestras, the delivery is very immediate. They react to loudness and passion immediately. But with the Anglo-Saxons, first you have to put things in place, and then you free yourself.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. My experiences with your orchestra in Buenos Aires, people say to me, what are rehearsals like? I said, well, they're noisy. People are talking, but the point is they're not talking, they're talking about the music. They're talking about the reason why you're in the room, which, so in my mind, I'm never upset by that, because you think, well, there's a passion in the room because they're talking about the passion. They may be talking about a bowing, or they might be talking about where they're going to breathe. But you also have people asking questions from the strangest places. And I don't mind, because it means everybody in the orchestra is really passionate about making music, and that's good. There has to be some point where there has to be, you quiet enough for you to make a point, and they do. But they what they don't just do is sit there in silence and then sort of work it out all afterwards and beforehand, which you're right, that that's not what it's like. When it comes to Buenos Aires, you started there as principal conductor of the Buenos Aires Philharmonic in 2007, and then in 2017. While staying with the Buenos Aires Philharmonic, you become general artistic and production director of the Teatro Colón. Now, for those who don't know, the Buenos Aires Philharmonic they play in the Teatro Colón, and the Teatro Colón is an opera house which has its own orchestra called the Orchestra Stabile. So basically, you've become, in the German world, a GMD, a general music director. You're running the opera house, but you also, rather than just with one orchestra, there are two orchestras there. How are you finding that on your time? So between, you've obviously got two big commitments, that huge commitment in Buenos Aires, but also you're still in Flint, Michigan, and running and being the music director there. How have you found your time constraints? Because in the German job, conductors have come on this podcast and complained about the fact there's so much admin and bureaucracy. How have you coped with it?
Well, same thing here with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm swamped with bureaucracy, but I try to have a team that will do concentrate in one area each. In production, I needed to concentrate in opera. And another in ballet, and another one in programs. And so I tried to have that, since I was in the other side before, so I knew that I had to do the Philharmonic.
Yes.
So, and I had a director there, executive director, that would operate all the things. So I only had to really be worried about the music. So now with all this, I do the planning, but then I free myself with the rest. So I do the planning, and now everybody to work. So then I can be creating more ideas for the future. And for me, the performance tonight is already gone. It's already passé. I had to think about the 2 months ahead or the year ahead. So I've been doing this now for 5 years, and it's a tough position, and it's a little bit hectic. I've been enjoying it very much. but also I know it's a position that doesn't stay forever,
Mm-hmm.
because it becomes a little bit in the political portion. So when things will change in the political scenes, your time is going to be up.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's a little bit different of being music director, because music director, you can stay 17 years or 20 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
And as long as you're creating a good relationship with ensembles, or you think that for your own health,
Yeah.
traveling, the spending of the time or being away from your family comes, then it's time to really see other venues. I mean, other places or other horizons
Mm.
that will come by, and so we have to understand that that's part of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's absolutely part of life. This is not like we got married and we were gonna be together until one dies,
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to be my next question is, do you still have time to go and guest conduct? Do you want to go and meet new orchestras? I mean, are you happy just doing, the ones that you love, Flint and places that you go to regularly, Washington and Buenos Aires, both in Stabile and the Phil? But do you have time to go and do it, or do you want to go and do it? That some conductors say, well, actually, since COVID, I'm just going to stick to my friends. But how do you see it? I mean, as you said, the politics in Buenos Aires, I know because of my friends, the decisions are made due to who's running the city, who's running the country, and sometimes those decisions can flip 180 degrees because of an election in the city or in the country. That these things happen. But I just thought I'd throw it in there as a big global question about how much time do you want to spend guesting or have to guest?
I love guesting
Yeah.
a lot, and throughout the years with the position, I had to diminish it.
Yeah.
But now when I know that I have 2 years to go before something might happen. Actually, I will know next year what will happen with the political situation, and I'm seeking to broaden my horizons.
Yes.
So, and I mean, and everybody knows that it's not a secret. I mean, it's nature.
Yes, of
That's
course.
the thing, that happens. It happened when I was in Mexico too.
Yeah.
I knew that a political situation was going to change, so I started doing my movement to go to someplace else.
Yeah.
That's what actually I was able to come here.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But now, if something else would come out, I would see. It's nothing is. I don't have the crystal ball, but I know
if only we had a crystal ball. If only. Yeah.
Yes, if only, that would be great.
Yes.
But I keep enjoying it. I talk to the players and work on things musically, and sometimes, because you don't have the time, with the Philharmonic, but also as an artistic director, I had to go and represent the theater in places, go and see the productions, the rehearsals of the other conductors doing the opera, for example, or the ballet inclusive, and I sit there and watch what they're doing. Not that I'm going to censor anything. It's just to know what they're doing. I mean, it's not like I just go and close the door and do whatever you want.
It's a big plus point about being the general music director of somewhere like the Teatro Colón and having to be there so often, is that you're going to have time when you can go to watch an opera in the evening. You go and watch, well, like when we met, the Philharmonic perform, because it's not your week, and you can keep your eye on. It's like Sakari Orimo told me that, he always listens to the broadcast of the BBC Symphony Orchestra, where he's the chief conductor, when other people are conducting him, to see how his orchestra is playing. That's a good thing about running a radio orchestra. But you can go and see them, and you can keep an eye on them, and you can work out who they like playing with, who they don't like playing with, and that's a positive, I would say. Compared to other music directorships where, I'm sure when you finished in Flint, you then fly back to Buenos Aires or to Mexico, and you don't know what they're doing in between. I don't know if that's true.
Well, That is true.
But it's true of every music director really in the rest of the world, is that they don't have time. They don't have time to stop behind and see who's conducting the next week. They can't do that.
No. I used to, was another colleague of mine. We went together in a program with Hugh Wolf and Carl Sinclair. I don't know, you know him. Carl also. We were in Michigan, but we'd never seen each other. We knew our names. But I was coming to Michigan, but I was in St. Paul. I was with St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. So I was going back to St. Paul, and I'm in the Detroit airport, and I just took the position at the Flint Symphony Orchestra in Michigan. And I knew that he was in Ann Arbor, close to Detroit, in Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan sits, but the orchestra is independent from the university. So, but we never seen each other, and suddenly I got out of the airport to wait for my ride to show, and I'm carrying my carry-on, and there is only a man next to me, seemed to be waiting for a ride too, and we kind of smiled at each other, but I saw my car coming, and it had the sign say Flint. So he was looking at me, and then he saw the car, and then he saw the tag. I had a tag of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. So he said, "Excuse me." He addressed me, and I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you Enrique Diemcke?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I just put pieces together. I saw Flint, I saw St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, and I just read that you are the music director of the Flint Symphony Orchestra and came from St. Paul." He said, "Don't tell me you are Carl Sinclair." So that's how we met, and then we became friends, and we've been doing things together. And then he moved to California, and I moved to California too. I was in Long Beach, and he is in Pacific. And so we've been doing correspondence and sharing things, sometimes podium exchanges, as they call them, but we don't like to call it that way because we are not really exchanging the podium. We're just exchanging the experience. Right, to make music in the highest level, and with people that can trust you and you can trust them, and it's nothing but making good music. Is the whole idea. So, but it was a funny story then we met in the airport only. So that's the way it is.
But before this podcast, the only way I would ever have met another conductor would have been in an airport or a train station or whatever else. They're not going to be there, highly unlikely, other than obviously we met backstage, but that doesn't happen very, very often at all. But since this podcast, I've met well over 100 conductors now for the first time, and we've got on very well. And it's been nice to talk about conducting, and maybe in the future it'd be nice for conductors to meet more often rather than fleetingly by a taxi rank in an airport. It just doesn't happen. I have one final question before we get to the very important 10 questions, of course. But this is the 11th question, Enrique, which every conductor has been asked. When you see a new score or have a new score or learn a new piece for the first time, do you have a system of learning it? Do you start at the beginning and work your way through? Do you do research at any point, historical? Do you listen to recordings? And for the geeks and students and me personally, are you a scribbler in? Do you write lots of things in your score? Do you use red, blue, black, highlighter pens? Or are you one of these geniuses who doesn't write a thing in their score? How do you go about it?
I am kind of in between.
Okay, yeah.
Genius when it's needed and practical when it's needed.
Yeah, of course.
Meaning that I'm not that I'm a genius, but at the very beginning of my studies and career, I used to color everything. I used for this instrument, for that, and actually that came because when we were sharing with other conducting students,
Yes.
things that everyone was learning and share something. So then we'll write the harmony construction, the melodic lines,
Yeah.
and so put everything in the score.
Yeah.
So that was the very beginning when I used to do that. Then I came across to Max Rudolph, and Max Rudolph in Philadelphia. I went to take a course, and he was teaching there, and he came and saw my score, and I said, "Oh my God, this is a piece of contemporary painting."
Your paneler said the same to me. He said, "What's all this? What's all this red and blue and squiggles and arrows?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah,
yeah. So he said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, maestro, that that is from my school years, college years."
Yeah.
And he said, "Everything has to be here. You have to learn it, to put it in your head." I said, yeah, well, it's true. Well, thank you for the advice. So since then, I mark the minimum.
Yeah.
Sometimes I mark phrases when it's a new piece, and I try to figure out if it's every 4 bars or every 8 bars, and we change the melody. But I don't do the big line like this. I just put it like a line, and I know that it's the beginning just for a glance.
Yeah.
Try to make sense if that is the case, and the harmony construction and the format, of course, to simplify the understanding of the work. Then when I see that the piece can speak something to me, then I go and do research about the composer and the idea of the composition, and see that clicks.
Yes.
I saw in the music. And that's more or less the process.
At this point, I asked Enrique if he listens to recordings at all in this process. We then went on to talk about how many recordings you should listen to, as well as whose recordings you should listen to. If you want to hear that short discussion, I've turned it into a Patreon-exclusive bonus mini-episode. On my Patreon page, you can find out all sorts of secrets, tips, opinions, and much more. You can hear over 19 hours of interviews with musicians, composers, soloists and managers, and hear their thoughts on conducting and conductors. You can listen to 19 bonus mini-episodes that accompany this podcast. You can read articles I've written on programming, score marking, and a brand new series I'm starting soon on string playing. And you can even have conducting lessons from myself. All of this is available at patreon.com/a mic on the podium, and from just £5 a month, which is less than a pint of beer in most cities, you can gain access to this ever-growing resource on conductors and conducting. Details and links to the page are in the show notes attached to this episode. Now, the all-important 10 questions with my guest, Enrique Arturo Diemcke. Enrique, it's come to that point of the podcast where we must go to the 10 questions. And as ever, I start with, what sound or noise do you love, and what sound or noise do you hate?
The kind of noises I like are the ones that have music on it. And the one sound I don't like is silence.
Oh, really? You're not a fan of silence?
I'm not a fan of silence.
And do you
prefer to hear noise and chaos and whatever. I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah.
I know my ear is doing well, but I like to hear sounds.
Yeah.
I don't like the sound of nothing. I mean, except when it comes to it stopping music, when you have that Brahms moment, that
yeah.
And that silence is louder than the sound you produce with the orchestra.
Absolutely.
So then you really feel the impact. But I think that's what I...
So there speaks somebody who's maybe grown up in cities all of his life. I'm much the same when I go and, we go out, we, book a cottage in the country and for a few days away, and you're sitting there late at night and you can hear nothing. And you just think, it's nice to hear a police siren somewhere off in the distance or, whatever. I mean, you can always hear birds singing. Well, that sort of leads us on to question number 3, which is, if you had 24 hours free, what would you spend it doing?
24 hours free. I wish I had
I
one.
know. And also preferably not no music involved. You know, if you just had a fantasy 24 hours, how would you like to spend it?
Well, without having to be no sound,
Mm.
in a place that is quiet in a sense,
Yes, yes,
but
yeah,
then offers uh, some beauty. I would
mm.
like to be in a mountain,
Yeah,
looking down, looking to a lake and
mm.
to a mountains in the front,
Yeah,
uh, with some snow, even better,
yeah,
um, and just enjoying the scenery and enjoying the birds flying and sometimes little waves coming out of a fish or something and it's in the water,
yeah,
um, and hearing those sounds that the nature would give. And unfortunately, when it gets into that point, I immediately think of Mahler,
yeah, yeah,
think of
yeah,
Beethoven,
yeah,
think of all those composers that were composing about nature, and sometimes some tunes come to my mind.
yeah.
But then I understand why they were composing those things,
Of course.
and have the feeling. So I think that it would be the way I would like to spend those 24 hours.
Now, I've never been, and I've always wanted to go. Either sort of northeast from Buenos Aires or direct south. I've always wanted to go to Mendoza, and I've never been. And I've always wanted to go to Patagonia, and I've never been. Now, you've been going to Buenos Aires now for many, many, many years, 15 years or so. Has anybody ever taken to Mendoza or Patagonia?
Oh yes, I've been
Yeah,
in Mendoza several times.
yeah.
I was there just in October last year, and Patagonia. I went to see the glaciers.
Yes. So, I mean, the picture you described of being high on a mountain, looking at a lake with more mountains around you and snow, I immediately had pictures of Patagonia in my head.
Yes,
Yeah. So, good, lucky you that you've
absolutely.
been. Yeah. Lucky you that you've
That
been.
was that was fabulous. I went there in 2020 in the beginning. Just was my last trip before the pandemic,
Yeah.
um, that I took. I wasn't going to, but then suddenly I said, why not? You have 2 or 3 days off.
Yeah.
Take the opportunity, otherwise it never is going to happen. And since that year also I was in Israel and traveling through Israel. So I said, well, why not? I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah.
And look at
Well,
what happened.
look what happened, indeed. Question number 4. You've already mentioned in the 11th question about marking up scores, so many names from the past. But I wonder who would be your favorite conductors of yesteryear?
Of yesteryears, depending of the style.
Mm. And the
Yeah,
repertoire probably as well.
the repertoire,
Yeah,
exactly. Depending on
yeah,
the repertoire.
yeah,
I enjoy a lot Karajan,
yeah.
a lot of the works, but Montu in the French repertoire for me is
Mm,
the,
yeah.
and then Beecham in the English repertoire,
Mm,
and Stokowski, whatever that he was doing, then was not, uh, then it was not totally classical.
yes.
Then he used his magic of creating and inventive.
Yeah.
Uh,
The Stokowski sound, as they called it. You know.
exactly,
Yeah,
Stokowski's
yeah,
sound.
yeah.
And then I also enjoyed the way of the conductors that built the 5 most important orchestras in the middle of the 20th century.
Mm,
Ormandy in Philadelphia, Metropolis in New York, um, in Kusevinsky and Munch in Boston,
yeah.
and Sale in Chicago, and
Cleveland.
in Cleveland, excuse me,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
Reiner in Chicago.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, so I enjoyed the way they were trying to make the sounds of the orchestra and how they were able to have the different sounds because of the work with the orchestra. So you can identify them
Mm,
just by dropping the needle and you say
absolutely true. Yeah,
Boston Symphony
yeah, yeah,
of Philadelphia,
yeah,
because the sound was very particular of each of
yeah.
the orchestras. Throughout the years, now you drop the whatever, you know, put the iPad. So you just say, Sony Records, EMI, oh, no, that's Deutsche Grammophon.
Yeah.
Because the technicians become more important.
Yes.
Yes, then they become to mold the sounds of orchestras. So you can say, oh, these are English orchestras, because that's the way the technicians make the sound of the orchestras.
Yeah. But orchestras are also becoming less and less characterized. I talked about this with Daniel Harding way back in episode 11 about the fact that you could turn on a record and the old Leningrad Orchestra, you just knew it was them. You knew it was the Chicago. You knew, but a lot of orchestras now, everything's becoming much more sort of middle of the road, middle ground. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to say it, but everybody's trying to sound a little bit like the Berlin Philharmonic. It has become. I think it's a shame that there aren't more people out there trying to make their own orchestra in their own sound. I mean, to some degree, it does happen. I think I could listen to a CBSO recording of Rattles and then a CBSO recording of Oromo, and I think I'd know the difference. Not because I was playing on both, but just because I know the orchestra sound. But let's see if question 5 has such an interesting answers. Question 5 is historically some people find difficult, some people find easy, but again because they pick repertoire and they pick styles. But who would be your favorite current conductors?
Current conductors, well, that's a little bit kind of a hard question to answer. I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Because most of them are alive.
Yes.
I don't want for them to get back to me and say, you didn't name me.
Well, you wouldn't be the first person to have got out of answering this question by saying exactly that. I remember dear John Adams, the composer, he named 4 or 5, and then he messaged me later and said, oh, can you drop in a 6th one, please? So I had to drop in a little recording he'd made. But yeah, I mean, it is so difficult because there are so many and you don't want to upset people. So are you going to not give me any answers?
No, it's impossible.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
As I say,
yeah.
Well, the ones are having a wonderful career.
Yeah.
I mean, and they are sort of my age thing. So I have some that are in my age range, and there are some that are still alive that are older than me, and they are the ones that are coming out.
Yeah.
But as you say, we don't have time so much to go and see them live.
No.
So it's only by recordings or by something, and many times the engineers interfere.
Yes.
So it's hard to really say, oh, I like that idea, I appreciate this interpretation. So for those things, we know very well, and Dudamel and some other of the young conductors are doing wonderful careers, and they have wonderful ideas that sometimes you might not think they are so correct, but since they are young, and that's the way people want to hear things, to attract young generations, so clicks. Click. That format works. And of course there are many others, and now with all the ladies conductors are coming, and it's going to be impossible to really choose one, especially if you are looking at them, because they are one more beautiful than the other.
Well, I mean, going to recording, Simon Rattle was used to say that his recordings are like snapshots of where he is at that point in his life. That he doesn't call them. He doesn't call them the final finished. It's just that's where I was at that point, and maybe I'll record it again in 25 years, and it'll be different because I'll be at that point in my life. It's. I take your answer completely and utterly, and it's fine, absolutely fine. At least you gave me reason why, and it's a very good reason. It's a reason I agree with. It's one of the reasons why I asked the question, because I like making the questions difficult.
This one is difficult.
It is, yeah.
But there are many, as I say, in my age range. Sarol has probably one of the most wonderful careers ever, and anyone can have, being the conductor of Berlin Philharmonic for so many years, and then now London Symphony, plus another German orchestra here and there. So maybe the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, who knows, and they talks about it.
Oh, well,
the crickets.
Yeah, the crickets are chirping. Well, let's keep our ears to the ground. What is the hardest work you've ever conducted?
The hardest one was that one I told you, the story about how to learn something that I didn't even know
Yes.
and how to make it sound.
Yes.
Um, and that was the hardest one because it really taught me a lot,
Mm.
broadened my mind, and it broadened my understanding of things. That my appreciation on logic had to come to a point that had to be together. So
Yeah.
I think to that moment and to what I'm today.
Mm.
So now whatever I conduct, as difficult as it can be, reminds me of that moment. So I know how to approach it. So how to make it my own.
Mm.
And I just conducted here in Buenos Aires the Symphony for Winds, Stravinsky,
Mm.
and I substituted the conductor that couldn't make it because of the pandemic.
Mm.
So I came to do it, and with 5 days notice. And so I approached it like that, but I went, no, okay, put it together. And I talked it to one of the assistants, said, do you like this music? He said, I'm having a terrible time because it's not my temperament.
Mm.
That's what my teacher used to say. You like to conduct only beautiful music. No, romantic music I like.
Yeah.
That makes me cry. And I get enthusiastic. Say, but this is a little bit stereo.
Yes. Yeah.
So I had to go and just put myself in place, how to really be in that. So it reminded me of those moments.
Yeah.
Remind me always that nothing is easy. And sometimes the easiest pieces are the hardest one.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Very
The
true.
simplest can be the hardest one because to have the connection of the musicians with that simplicity, without losing the interest, without losing the emotion to portray, is a challenge.
Yeah. When traveling abroad to conduct, what item could you not leave home without?
American Express card.
Very good. Very good. I've been waiting for somebody to try and get around it, but it's a very good answer. It is a very good answer.
Remember that it was the commercial and say, don't live without it?
Yeah, I do remember it. It's a very good answer. Of course, by being a very good answer that sort of got round the question, it's now going on the banned list for the next person who's interviewed. They won't be allowed to say credit card. But no, you're so right. You can basically, the world being what it is now, you can basically leave home and go anywhere. And if you've got a credit card, you can survive. You can buy, pretty much anything.
If they, like it happened to me one day, I won't say the place and I won't say the whole story because it's a little bit, I didn't like it. But I was in the middle of the night in this place and they took the car away.
Right.
Police, because they were saying that I was not certain what I was going to, but I wasn't driving. The other person was driving. So they took the car away and took the person arrested. And then I was in the middle of the street with nothing but a box that I didn't even know what was in the box. And my telephone. And that's it. So then I said, what should I do? So I picked up my credit card, American Express, and I called the American Express concierge.
Yeah.
And I was outside Mexico, and it's from Mexico. So I called and I say, this is happening to me. And I say, okay, don't worry. We're sending someone to pick you up, and we are booking a hotel for you.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, of course, it cost me money, but still I have that opportunity of calling the concierge in the credit card, and they helped me to find a place to stay the night, because I already knocked the door to several hotels in the area and it was all booked. And so I say, okay, that's great. So I waited there and it came a taxi and it took me to this hotel that I had the reservation.
Brilliant. Well, and therefore your answer is now, rather than cheating and getting around the question, is actually a really good answer. So thank you for giving me the answer. Brilliant. Number 8. What is the one thing you would change about being a conductor?
What I would change, that's what I've been trying to change for years. I tried to change the image and the contact with the musicians, that the conductor is the boss.
Yep.
I tried to really, I feel it with some orchestras that I go to, and that's why I stay as long as that, because I tried to make him believe that the orchestra is my instrument.
Mm.
So and that instrument doesn't play by itself. I
No.
need to be the one that makes it sound. I'm the one that is making the rhythm. It's me that is making the idea, the musical idea.
Mm.
So try to make that with a friendly approach, with a energy that would make them feel that you are not afraid,
Yeah.
and you are not doing it because you are frightened.
Mm.
You don't do things because you are frightened. You do things because you love what you are doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing I would like to see more often. Not that the person there is the most powerful, and and is gonna give you an opportunity to tour and make recordings and give you money and glamour, but it gives you the opportunity of making music.
Yes, absolutely.
And you have the freedom, and you have the understanding, and that the instrument of the conductor is the orchestra.
Mm.
As I said to my students when I give a lesson, a piano doesn't sound by itself unless it's an electric shit.
Yeah.
But if you have a piano, then you put your finger down and it will create a sound, correct?
Mm.
So it depends how hard you do it, how soft you do it, it will respond.
Yes.
Same thing is with the orchestra.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But the only part is difficult, and then each of the people are making, or each of the sounds is going to be coming from an instrument that is doing the same thing as you are doing, playing that instrument to make the sound of the instrument.
Yes.
So that is what is the beauty of this job, how to make it that everyone connects.
Mm.
And if you achieve that as many times as possible, the better.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
perfect world, you would think that it's a fantasy, as you say,
Yeah.
every day. But it happens more often than none.
Yeah, and well, it's that mixture of collaboration. It's I took some rehearsals with the CBS own youth orchestra last week, and from Saturday to Thursday, and then on Friday the conductor who was going to conduct the concert took over. So he did Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I was rehearsing Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony all week with this young orchestra of under 21s. And I said at one point to the first clarinet, I said, try something there. Try a little writ. Try an echo. Try it with me. But then when the conductor comes, who was Joshua Weilerstein, try it with him. He's he won't want to hear it the same way every time, and eventually he'll go, oh, I love that. Do it that way, or he'll have his own ideas, and he'll say, no, don't do that. I'd rather you do it this way. But it's that to and fro. It's backwards and forwards. It's collaboration. It's not just standing there, as you've just said at the beginning. We're subservient. Tell us, Mr. Boss Conductor, how you want everything. I don't think orchestras should work like that. I don't work well with orchestras like that. It should be a whole process where everybody's making music. That's the point.
That's the point. Yeah. I normally say to orchestras, when we are getting to know each other, or we know each other better, a little better, and say, do you understand when it says retardando? Do you understand the meaning?
Mm-hmm.
And when it says accelerando, when you see tempo primo, when you say going ahead, do you know what is in plain English? Means watch the conductor.
Very
watch
good.
The conductor. Because he's going to do something or none.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly true. Absolutely true. Yeah. Number 9. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Tough to answer, because since I was young, I asked my father about my name, and he told me it was Arturo Toscanini. I said, I want to be a conductor. My father said, well, I mean, it's easy to say. For that, you need to learn all about music, about the theory, about the history of music. You need to play several instruments. You need to understand the psychology of the instrumentalist, because
Yes.
it goes accordingly with the instrument. And it's a no, doesn't mean anything but except to understand what the process they're going
Yes.
through.
Yeah.
And I say, Dad, teach me. I'm only 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I always wanted to be. I want a conductor. And even in my most wild dreams, I don't think I would like to do anything more than conduct.
Mm.
Even just a small little ensemble or youth orchestras or whatever, just to be able to communicate and to be able to pass on the things that I learned from the masters,
Yeah.
the things I learned from my teachers. So to pass the tradition and to pass the idea of what is music all about, and to really share it with those people that are going to be going and coming there, and they can put anything that is not going to make good music to put it as outside.
Yeah.
And they take their coats and put it out there and leave it there. When you
Yes.
come into the hall, we are all music makers, and sharing it and sharing it. I normally say that to audiences too, and we come to practice together for so long and sharing those things with the colleagues.
Mm.
And the reason is because when we come to the stage, our mission is going to be accomplished when we are going to perform it and share it for audiences.
Mm.
Then our mission is being accomplished.
And right now, the audiences need a place to escape to. No,
Exactly.
we're talking on the 1st of March 2022. Anybody listening in the future, this was about 6 days after Russia invaded Ukraine. The world needs a place for its head to disappear and escape to for a while. And music or art or poetry or literature, we all need somewhere to escape. And it can't be stressed how important it is for us all at the moment.
Yes,
So
the
yeah,
arts.
yeah.
I think that the arts develop more and more and more in the later years when we began to have all this knowledge of the bad things can go in another place of the world.
Mm.
So then we see, where do I go?
Yeah.
What is the place to be? And so you find it in the arts,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
reading, as you say, writing, or playing an instrument, or dancing, or singing, or painting, anything that is going to be in your spirit, and you want to be creative, because
Mm.
that's what we do. We create. We have that opportunity to create. And if they are destroying things in the other side of the world, that you have to contribute with that energy
Mm.
to probably bring it to out there, so it goes all the way there, and we help a little bit to have the peace.
Mm. Very true. Question 10, and maybe due to current political circumstances, I ought to stop asking if the world were to end tonight, but let's stick with it for now. If the world were to end tonight, what would be your choice of final meal and drink?
Well, it would be something Mexican.
Ooh, like Mexican food.
Mexican food, and I would see what have the ingredients to prepare,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be the choice to the meal. Because if I want to have a chance to go to the store and find things
Yeah.
to make a mole and to
Yeah.
make a guacamole or to make any of the big sauce, I would see what I have. If I had tomatoes and I have onions and I have garlic and I have eggs, so I would do something with that
Yeah.
meal in Mexican style.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice tomato based Mexican style sauce with some eggs in
Mm.
some style, and either fried or scrambled. And then I would see, normally I have like 2 or 3 different types of wines
Mm.
that I don't drink alone. That's one thing I don't do.
Ah, okay.
I don't drink alone. So I would have to think, well, who I would call.
Oh, well, I was going to say, so very much wine and not a tequila mezcal to go with your Mexican
If I would
food.
have a tequila or mezcal, I would do my shot to open the appetite.
Yes.
While I'm fixing the dinner, while I'm doing all that stuff. And then when I put everything in place, then I would have my wine and
the people you'd invited to drink with you.
Exactly. And who would be whoever answers the phone?
Well, put it this way. Next time I'm in Buenos Aires, I hope you're there, because I will come round with some wine and we'll hopefully sit down and we'll carry on chatting. It's been an absolute pleasure and over the last hour and 20 minutes or so. And thank you very much. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you again, hopefully one day soon in Buenos Aires. Thank you, Enrique.
No, thank you. And it's a pleasure, really, because all the questions that you've been doing, and I can see your answers too. So that also makes me know you and be closer to you, and a colleague in both ways, as a musician, which is first. We are first musicians.
We are.
And then our specialty is to be conductors. Yes. But we are first musicians. And that's what is the thing that we all need to understand and to really enjoy. And making music, whatever opportunity you have, playing the violin, playing the piano, singing, dancing, or writing music or conducting, is making music.
Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
A Mic on the Podium was devised and produced by Michael Seal, with music by Ben Dawson. Many apologies for the bings and bongs and notifications you heard today. I simply cannot edit those out if they happen in a room 6,900 miles away. Enrique asked me to let you know about his biography, and the details for that book can be found in the show notes below. Next time, I chat with an English conductor who started out as a very successful leader of orchestras, and then transitioned into one of the leaders of the historically informed performance movement. Over a long and distinguished career, he conducted all over the world, but is probably best known for being the founder of the Brandenburg Consort and being the principal conductor of the Hanover Band. But until then, bye-bye.